Okay, I think let us start this proper in the interest of time. So hi everybody, this is Alex and Lim from Singapore Ultra Runners Association. Together we have our guest of honor, Jasmin Paris. And thank you very much, Jasmin, for taking her time off her busy schedule to do this for us, to help us promote trail running and to share with us the experiences, and to inspire each and every one of us, into greater heights. So let me run through a brief introduction of Jasmin. I'm sure all of us on the call are very, very aware of her accomplishments and are in awe with what she has achieved. So Jasmin, mother of two, an ultra runner, as we all know, she's also a small animal vet and a research scientist. And but amongst all those in her busy schedule, she is the National Trail Running Championship, who has set records for not just one, the Bob Graham round and also the Ramsey round. We can talk about all this in a bit, but she has a whole list of accolades to her name, and I think we'll take a lot of time running through all of them. But let me just run through a quick list. She is Dragon's Back. She's been there, first female finisher. Well, very first 100-mile race in the UTMB in 2016, and she came in on the podium at sixth. She was a World Sky Runner World Series champ in 2016. And we all know the spine race that she did in 2019. She beat the world course record by a good 12 hours, which is amazing. And during breaks, she performed mother duties of expressing milk for a baby. That was astounding, and that was left us all in awe. I mean, it's the humanity of it all, and doing that for during a trail race just blew our minds. And March 22, she did a fun run, and a fun run is not like ours, 10K, 20K, or even 30. But yeah, she just did a 3 loops of Barkley Marathon, which, if everybody knows, is one of the toughest ultra trail event in the world. And in March this year, just this year, and we were there, we watched it live. Jasmin, you became the 20th person and the first woman to complete the coveted Barkley Marathon, just shy of the 60-hour mark, and that's amazing. Thank you so much for taking this time to share with us. And I wanted to kick this off with all these remarkable feats that you have done, your record runs at the Spine Race and Barclays Marathon. The first question I have, is what actually prompted you to embark on such grueling, hard journeys? I mean, these are not just normal distance milers, but these are amazing and very, very tough ultra running events that you have embarked upon. And it requires a humongous amount of running and concentration, and not to mention hours and hours of training away from your family. So what really prompted you and motivated you to do such things?
I guess when I first became a runner, I run in the hills because I just love being in outdoor places, wild places, and I love the fact that when I run on a daily basis, I can get into the hills before work and kind of still fit it in alongside my work and my role as a mum. And the reason that I sort of ended up doing, I guess, longer and longer races is partly because I realized that's what I was good at. So the longer the distance, the better relatively I seem to do. And I also just enjoy that aspect. I enjoy the kind of journey as it is. I enjoy the fact that that you have more time to look around, you can talk to people, you can eat. Those are all things that I enjoy about kind of long days out on the hill. So rather than doing a short race where it's super fast and you don't get the time to breathe or look around or anything, I just enjoy those kind of. It's a bit like if you're going to do a race, then you might as well do a long one, kind of, get the most out of it. So that's kind of where I ended up going when I was in terms of doing fell running. And then gradually, I guess over time, I ended up doing longer and longer races. And when I signed up for the Spine, I would say that was my kind of first really long race, certainly first race where I was kind of battling sleep deprivation. And part of the reason I signed up for that was just because it was something completely new and I was excited by the challenge of it. I guess previously to that, I'd got to the point where I was racing mainly races where I knew I would finish. But the Spine, I wasn't sure what would happen if I tried to race it, whether that I would sort of end up, just just sort of not making it to the end, because it's obviously you have to sort of you have to pace yourself on that sort of a distance. So it was exciting doing a new challenge. And when I actually signed up for the spine, it was at the time that my daughter was just, I think, about 10 months old. She wasn't sleeping through the night. I was back at work, so all my training was early in the morning, and it was winter, and I was really struggling to get the motivation to get out of bed. But by signing up for the spine race, it suddenly gave me something to aim for and focus on. And certainly a similar thing happened with the Barkley when my son was about a year old. I signed up for the Barkley, and it was just really good to have something to focus on and aim. And yeah, I just find these sorts of events kind of exciting, intriguing. The question of whether you can finish it, whether you can complete. Certainly for Barkley, that was, that it's very much got that sort of pull to it, of being almost impossible but not quite. So hopefully that sort of answered your question.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. The insights to the brain of an elite ultra runner. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Jasmine. You mentioned spine race and Barclays. These two are very different trail races. One is long. You fight the weather. That is the spine. Barclays is a totally new beast altogether. It has, no markers. You have to look for pages of the book. You have the terrain, you have the weather to contend with. So I know they are very different, but can you share a little bit of what these experiences are like? How are they different? And what really kept you going at these instances?
I mean, I think they both share that same kind of the same sort of challenge over a long period of time, the same kind of element of knowing that you're going to probably come close to hitting the wall or hit the wall multiple times. It's certainly in Barkley, that's what happens. You know that you're going to be pushing yourself beyond where you're comfortable, way out of your comfort zone. I guess the spine, the challenges there, you're right, in terms of navigation, you do have to navigate, but you have a GPS device that you have to carry with you, so everybody uses that, and that helps a lot. Obviously the spine is run in midwinter, so probably 2/3 of the time is in darkness, and that's a big feature. And you have to carry quite a big pack with quite a lot of gear in the spine. There's a long kit list of obligatory kit. So even though I had sort of the lightest kit I could get, I was still probably running with 6.5 kilos on my back. Whereas in contrast on the Barkley, to be honest, on the Barkley you could go out with nothing at all. There's no mandatory kit at all. Like, it's totally down to you. You're responsible for yourself. So you could go out just wearing a t-shirt and shorts and nobody'd stop you. But you wouldn't get very far, because obviously you still need the things that you kind of going to require out there in the wilds to kind of get you around the loop. So as I say, on Barkley, there's quite a lot of navigation. That's like a huge component of what makes Barkley so hard. And there's a lot more climbing on Barkley as well. So the spine is longer, but there's a lot less climb. So, but whereas Barkley, you're going up or down almost all the time. And you're also kind of going through, not everywhere, but in places on Barkley, you're kind of pushing through undergrowth, especially kind of brambles, these thick briars, these kind of big thorny brambly plants. So you don't have that on the spine either. You generally on the spine, you might be running through bog, through mud, but you're not running generally. I mean, you're on a path, so you don't have to kind of fight your way through any undergrowth or anything.
Right. Okay, cool. And back to the Barclays, how did the last loop felt like? Was there a time when you doubted yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when I set off, I felt really bad when I was setting off. Like, I didn't, I just was feeling really bad, really sick. I'd struggled to eat at the kind of interloopal period. But when I set off on the fifth loop, I was aware that like I had enough time to do it if I could just, keep my head and keep moving forward as fast as I could and not make any kind of serious errors. I thought that this is possible. So, and the good thing about the loop 5 is that you know that you're climbing every hill for the last time. So that's a real sort of boost to your morale as you make your way along the course. You're ticking everything off for the last time. And in contrast to previous loops, when you're often sort of faced with this awful thought of having to go back up this hill on the next loop, So that sort of added to I think the adrenaline and the kind of euphoria and excitement of being on that final loop. And that really helped me sort of ignore the pain, I guess, in my leg, the tendonitis, pain associated with tendonitis, and just to keep pushing to the finish. And that, honestly, I actually thought, despite the fact that time-wise, I think many people were sort of writing off my chances, certainly at the fire tower, it didn't look that good for me, I think, time-wise. But I personally thought I could make it. And the point when I became unsure that that was possible was when I reached the valley, with only about maybe a kilometre to go, up to the gate. And then I suddenly, I mean, I looked at my watch and I was basically, yeah, I mean, I'd been checking my watch, but at that point, it seemed like that final descent, that final hour of descending had just disappeared somewhere. So when I got into the valley and had less than 10 minutes to go to do that last kilometre, I suddenly thought this might not happen. And I could envisage myself, reaching, I could see myself in my mind, like reaching the gate being a few seconds over. And the thought of that and thought of having to go there and do it all over again was just like, so yeah, it was really awful. It was a really difficult final kind of kilometre. I had to dig deeper than I've ever had to do. And I couldn't really believe that I was still managing to run because I was so desperate to stop. I just ignored all the signals from the body and just kept pushing. And yeah, that final kind of sprint up to the gate. I don't really know where I managed to pull it out from, but I guess I was ready to, I was willing to collapse on the road or make it to the gate, whichever happened first. And you can see from the videos, I kind of hit the gate and didn't have any control of myself anymore because it was everything in me was just trying to get to that gate. And that's all I had the energy for. And then after that, I just collapsed on the floor.
So maybe if I could ask a question, if you didn't make it this time round, would you come back and do again?
Yeah, pretty sure I would have done. Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to like leave it to rest. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think you showed us everybody what is possible. And we all know that it's hard. And all of us who does ultra running, we hit the walls, we doubt ourselves, we come into trouble. I always look at ultra running as shape management, if I may. Deal with the curveballs thrown at you, deal with what you have, the terrain yourself, and you just encapsulate that very well. By believing yourself, by turning the negativity to the single possibility to see yourself, visualize yourself finishing it. I think that's key. That's for me. But through this, I guess once you're done Spine, you're done Barclays, what have you I'm sure you have thought through things. Think about how would I done things differently. Would you care to share some of those thoughts on how would you have tackled Barclays if what we have done differently, what we have done better, what you have not
Yeah,
done?
I think the main single thing that I could have done better was the nutrition. Not necessarily, it just basically I struggled to eat. And I think part of the reason was that on the first 3 loops, I guess I was pushing quite hard because I wanted to stay with the lead group. I wanted to make as much time as I could in those first 3 loops to give myself enough time to finish the last 2. So actually the first year I did a fun run in 40 hours. The second year I did it in 36-ish. And this year I did it in about 32. So like you could definitely, that was part of the plan. That was very much the game plan when I went out there. In my head. But I guess with that came the fact that I was maybe pushing myself a little bit faster than I would have liked in those first leaps. And then I didn't probably eat quite as much as I should have done and would have liked to. And then I got to the point, obviously, when you start to feel sick and you can't really eat very much anymore and your mouth's really dry. And maybe it would have been better to have kind of more liquid nutrition options to just be able to have something, lots of people have kind of liquid, put stuff in the water and now that they can drink. So maybe I would do that in the future or try that anyway. But yeah, it was all right. I managed to sort of eat really well I would say that pretty well on the first 2 loops, but it was like loop 3 and 4 that started to go downhill. And it might be that there's just no answer. That was just part of the fact that I was kind of pushing myself, to that across that red line. And then with that came the fact that it was difficult to eat. But that's the one thing that I think would have been better if I could have eaten more. But I think I was pretty happy with Barkley. In terms of navigation and things, sure, I made some mistakes on the final loop. I lost about 20 minutes and around book 6, dropping slightly too far downstream and taking a while to work out what had happened. But I managed to work it out and I corrected it before it became kind of before it ended everything. So another 2 minutes and it would have all been a different story, wouldn't it? So it's really important to just keep your head in those situations. Overall, I'm really proud of Barkley. I think more proud than anything else I've ever run. And not necessarily because it was like my best run ever. I don't know that it was, but certainly I think it was my best display of, or my best kind of example of perseverance, because I really wanted it and I really believed it was possible. And it was pretty hard at times. Like I suffered a bit. So I'm a pretty, yeah, I'm proud of the fact that I made it to the end.
I'll remember that when I run now. Barclays is suffering a bit. Yeah, I mean, not just you, we definitely made all of us very, very proud to have witnessed that. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. So maybe if I could go on with some questions as well. So we know that you have a deficit ACL. So between two of us, I think we have three. We actually had 3 ACL reconstruction. So I can imagine, and both of us can definitely vouch how difficult it is to get back the strength and to actually do anything without an ACL. So yeah, perhaps if you could tell us, what maybe the background of that, and with all this, how do you actually deal with setbacks like injuries or races if they don't go as planned?
Yes, the knee has been something that actually happened when I was 17, so a really long time ago. And I fell off my horse, hit a fence on the way down, and partially tore it. And then I was like a month later or something, I must have partially tore it. I don't know. I just went to the doctors and then they sent me home with some painkillers. I didn't go to hospital at that point. But like a couple of months later, I was running to catch a train and I saw the train pulling away from me in the station, and I kind of stamped to a stop, and it clearly was partially torn because it just gave way underneath me, and I guess I completely tore the rest of it at that point. And then it was pretty sore, and I walked on crutches for a few weeks. But I guess by the time I got an appointment, it was like, I don't know, a couple of months down the line, or maybe even 6 months. It was a long time. And by that point, I was skiing and doing other stuff again, and I talked to the surgeon, and he sort of gave me the pros and cons of reconstructing it, given that I was like already exercising at a pretty high level at that point without it. And I never had it reconstructed. And it's actually been really fine over the years until the last few years when it sort of became a bit more of a problem. But the really interesting thing is that this last 6 months, before Barclay, I did a lot of weighted strength training, and I really built up that leg. And actually for Barclay, it was better than it's been for years and years. It just felt like a completely normal. So it was really good. Yeah. In terms of other injuries, I guess I think all runners must have some injuries sometimes. It's obviously nice when you hit that kind of nice sweet spot and you're not injured, because then it's a kind of positive feedback cycle, isn't it? When you get kind of consistent in your training, I think your body builds up and it adapts, and you don't kind of stress it too much. What happens is when you get injured is the opposite way around. Then it's a vicious cycle, because you get injured, you compensate, you have time off, then you get injured again when you try and come back. So yeah, I've certainly had those experiences as well. And actually before Barclay this year, in November time, I didn't know at the time, and I actually got COVID when I was supposed to be going to have it investigated. But basically, I think I had a metatarsal stress fracture because I couldn't run for like 6 weeks between November and December. And I just cross-trained, which probably was quite good strength-wise as well. But yeah, I had to, and when I started running, it still hurt. So it was realistically, it was 8 weeks that I sort of had out of running in November, December time. So it wasn't the perfect kind of preparation, but after that things got good, and then I didn't get injured really until, it was pretty good. But yeah, there's always these little things you just think everything's going well, and then something will pop up, like the metatarsal or something.
And would you how many strength training sessions would you recommend in a week, assuming?
I mean, I don't feel like I'm qualified to make recommendations on these things. I'm not like it's not my job, but I can tell you what I do. I do 3 sessions a week, and they're like all half an hour. I do 3 sessions of half an hour. I do an online class, which is actually really useful for me, because I just find that if there's a class and I'm joining a group of people, it just motivates me to do it more. And also, obviously, I get feedback from the kind of coach who's pretty good at like picking up on what we're doing at home. And I'm doing it with weights and things, sometimes added weights with my kids on top of me as well. But yeah, it's nice because I can do it in my own front room. I can be and I can be straight out of the door afterwards on the way to nursery and things. So I do that 3 times a week.
Nice. Okay, great. So we also understand that your aspiration in Barclays was to show female athletes as much as male athletes that we women can finish hard races. So as a successful female athlete in a demanding sport, what message do you have for girls who aspire to run trail?
Well, I would just say it's such a fun sport, and I would say don't be afraid to just get out there and give it a go. I think that if you're kind of at the really starting out stage, it's useful to have company. So like whether it's a case of joining a club or finding some friends to go out with, that make me, especially if you're going kind of more wild places where you might be a bit nervous about things like navigation and so on. But really, I think it's such a welcoming community. Well, I've found it that way. And it's such a kind of, yeah, it's such a friendly sport and so kind of joyous that I think just go out there and start doing it and don't be worried about thinking that you're kind of slow or anything. Because I mean, I was slow when I set out and set off running and started kind of racing. I was in the back group, but I just got better, you know. So you just go there, you enjoy it, and that's the key thing. I think enjoying it is the key thing. So for me, enjoying it means like that requires me running in kind of wild places in the hills. So I don't really enjoy running on roads that much, but I think enjoyment is a key component. And yeah, and in terms of girls, I would say I think we're seeing more and more participation by women in events, and I think sometimes women are maybe more put off by kind of races that build themselves as extreme and the toughest race and so on. But I think again, it's just a case of it starting smaller and then building up. Because I think these things are really accessible to both women and men, and women have some fantastic, I think, attributes to help them with kind of certainly when it gets to really long races, because it becomes there's lots of different factors that play in that kind of play a role with very long distance stuff that maybe are not just, you know, it's not just about pure strength and speed in terms of running. There's lots of other things that become important as well.
And it really brings you to cool places to trail running.
Pardon?
It always brings you to trail very cool places around the world.
Yeah.
Cool and cool. Yeah. Also, just wanted to also, I think I don't have kids, so I'm always very amazed with moms who have a career and also runs. So, and especially, ultra runners as well. And with two young kids, just wanted to check, how do you juggle your time? Do you even have rest days?
I do. I have Monday as a rest day, and I'm pretty good at just having that as a pure rest day. So I do my Monday strength class actually on catch up on a Tuesday usually. So I'm pretty good at that, or on a Sunday. In terms of my training, I fit it all in the morning. So I get up when I'm training. I get up generally at 5, train from 5:30 till maybe 7:15, and then if I'm doing strength, I do a half an hour strength, and then it's straight out the door to get my son to nursery on the way to drop. Way to the vet clinic where I work. So it's pretty, it's pretty kind of non-stop. But the way that I fit it in is just by doing it early in the morning, and even at weekends I go early in the morning as well. So I tend to go out, again about 5:30. So that means that even if I want to do like a 5-hour run, I'm done by the time that that I want to do things like take the kids swimming and stuff on a Saturday morning. It's done. So I still get to spend the weekends with them, because it's really important for me that it doesn't become like, I mean, they're the most important thing in my life. So they're more important than running, and they're more important than my career for me. So by far. So I want to make sure that I spend the time with them when they're growing up, those weekends and those evenings and things. So we always have like a family meal together in the evenings and do bath time and bedtime. And we're very like those hours from like sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock are just about the family and the children. So yeah, all the training has to be early in the morning. I commute on when I'm working in the lab, because I do kind of half of my work is clinical work as a vet and half is research. And when I'm commuting to the lab from nursery, I cycle in. So that's additional training. And at weekends, we do things like we go hill walking with the kids, and that's all extra training. And at weekends, sometimes I swim in the reservoir by our house as well. It's kind of open water swimming. And again, that's extra cross training. So I think you kind of work out a way to fit it in around your life, really, if you really want to do it. And we don't have a television, so that saves up some time as well.
No Netflix.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I recall that. That's exactly what I do when my daughter was young. Out the door by 5, back by 9. Just when she wakes up, and then spend the entire day with her. Only get to when after she sleeps. So yeah, it's a day by itself, and we just build our training around family. I think those priorities are important. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Yeah, so other than time, female athletes also have to deal with the physical aspect, such as their monthly cycle. So just also wanted to check, personally, do you have any remedies to fight such times where, you just don't feel 100% wanting to get out of bed?
Yeah, I guess so. Firstly, for me, running's actually, I find that helps generally. Like running helps certainly when I'm feeling a bit down or a bit kind of tired, even if it's just to mentally feel better. I'm really good at, I think I'm pretty good. Certainly got much better over the years at listening to my body. And I think part of that was actually being pregnant because I was really in tune, like really listened to what my body wanted to do and didn't push it too hard when I was pregnant, when I was coming back from kids. And I think that's sort of stayed with me. So I'm pretty good at sort of dialing into that because I think there's no point in like pushing yourself to do some crazy hard training session if you feel bad when you set off. Certainly sometimes you just don't really want to get out the door, and once you're out you feel good. But if you're genuinely kind of a bit under the weather, then I just tend to just take it easy. And my coach is really good at sort of, I think he's pleased that I can recognize that and kind of adjust things if it's not a good day, then to just maybe move the training session to the next day. So sometimes I'll do that if I've not had enough sleep or whatever. I'll say, look, I know it's not perfect, but I'm going to move the hard session to tomorrow, and I just ran easy today. So that's kind of how I would do that. And generally, whatever it is that I'm worrying about or life, is that when I come back, I feel better than I did when I went out from a run. I have to be really upset to not feel like to not want to run. So then I would just go for a walk if there was some reason like that. But physically in general, as I say, I just kind of go with what my body's telling me a little bit.
So more like go with the flow, basically.
Yeah, a little bit. So, and yeah, as I say, my coach is really good at sort of, just letting me kind of adjust things if that's the case. I don't have big issues around kind of my period and that sort of thing in my monthly cycle in terms of training. It's not such a big deal for me, but I know for other women it might be. So I guess I'm just kind of lucky in that sense.
Okay.
Good takeaways.
Yeah.
Very good takeaways there.
Sorry?
No, very good takeaways there.
Thanks. Yeah.
Generally, we have to train hard. We know that, but sometimes we just have to recognize that it's not as productive as we hope it would be. Yeah.
So maybe also if we could check or if you could just share with us how do you like fight sleep deprivation? Do you have any hacks around it? Like maybe during a race, how would you do that? Or do you?
Yeah, it's quite difficult. Like I think so for me, kind of sleep deprivation issues generally hit in once certainly on the second night is more of a thing. And certainly once you've gone through 2 nights of no sleep, then I start to hallucinate. Interestingly, at Barkley this year, I guess because I was just riding on such a wave of adrenaline and just had this massive sort of adrenaline and kind of rushed desire to get the thing finished and done, is that I didn't hallucinate that much and I didn't have that many problems with sleep deprivation. I think like kind of with the feeling of it. And I think that was just because the whole time I was pushing, like I was really pushing, I was racing the whole time. It's not like you fall asleep when you're like really racing. You fall asleep when you're kind of, you've kind of started kind of plodding along and your mind wanders, and that's when you want to fall asleep. But at Barkley, I didn't feel like that. I was really going for it the whole time. I think in terms of like tips, I guess starting a race well rested, like I think that's really important. So I think that was part of the reason I felt better this year, was I was really well rested when I started the race. And I know that it can be difficult to sleep beforehand because you're excited, but even just the fact of like lying down, your body is resting. And then when you get out there, if you're really, really struggling with sleep and you may be at the point where you're sort of falling over a little bit, it's a good idea to lie down for just 5 minutes, set an alarm and do a power nap for 5 minutes. It's amazing what 5 minutes can do. Like in my experience, 5 minutes can kind of rejuvenate you for hours and hours. So I think if you're kind of racing and you're wanting to not lose too much time, then don't assume that you need to have a 3-hour sleep to recover yourself. It might be as little as 5 minutes or 20 minutes. But I don't think you actually need that long to kind of tide you over for many more hours. The challenge at Barkley is that you can't do that. You can't set a watch because you're given the watch that he gives you at the start. I certainly didn't have time to kind of work out setting an alarm, and I'm not even sure if it really would be the right thing to do. But what people do at Barkley, things like that John Kelly has done in the past several times, I think, is to go to sleep on a book if you know that someone's coming either behind you or from the opposite direction, and he's going to come to that book and will wake you up. Obviously that relies on the knowing that the other person isn't going to get lost in that period of time. So if you go to sleep on the book, then they have to wake you up when they get there. I think the other thing he said he did at one point was to go to sleep with his head in a puddle. So he just like couldn't, he slept for a moment and then he woke up because his head was so cold. So you can do things like that. Personally, I didn't do that at Berkeley, and I would be scared of just falling asleep and staying there, because there's stories about people obviously that have fallen asleep and then stayed there for hours. So yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
John Kelly does, the other thing he does is as he's running along, he like starts doing these like shouting, grunting noises to keep himself awake. And I joined in with him for a bit, but in my case it was more because I was just feeling awful. So I just thought I'd do a bit of kind of shouting and grunting to kind of get the frustration out of how I was feeling. But yeah, I think he was doing it to try and stay awake. That was when we were on loop 3.
What was the sleep deprivation different between Spine and Barclays for you?
I guess it was a bit different, because on the Spine I only went through one night and then I slept on the second night. So I slept like 2.25 hours or something, which in the context of compared with Berkeley is like a huge amount of sleep. Then obviously on the Spine you go through to longer. So Berkeley finished at 60 hours and I ran the Spine for 83. So it's a bit different. I think I probably ended up having, at the end I was having more hallucinations at the Spine than I did at Berkeley by the end of the Spine. But yeah, again, you're running a lot of the Spine in darkness, and that does make you want to fall asleep more than being in the daytime.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. Just moving on, away from trail running for now and all your races. I think it's all of us would like to hear from you. How do you see the sport of trail running evolve? Any changes you'd like to see in this sport that you love? How does it benefit the community and the sport itself?
So I guess, some of the changes we're already seeing happening, I think, in terms of female participation at events, especially kind of the longer, maybe events that are kind of marketed as being more challenging. I think women actually do really well in those events. It's just that they have a they're less likely to enter the events, but once they're there they do very well, which suggests to me that they're actually really well prepared. They're less likely to commit to doing a race like that unless they're well prepared. So I think already kind of female participation is improving, and that's partly because there's probably better facilities put on for women. I think increasingly races are getting better at kind of offering things like pregnancy deferrals and deferrals for women after having children, which is, I think, really important. So those sorts of things. I guess in terms of kind of the wider picture, woman aside, I think that I'd be keen for there to be, personally, I think that we need to, I'm really aware of my kind of carbon footprint as a runner traveling to races, and I'm trying within Europe to travel to races by train, rather than flying. So I think that we need to be, I personally feel that we need to be kind of conscious of that when making kind of racing decisions and travel decisions. And I'm a co-founder of the Green Runners, and one of those kind of pillars of that movement is to think about how you move, and that's generally how you move to races, because we know that's like by far the biggest contributor to the carbon footprint of events. So I think that trail running needs to evolve in a way that certainly I think it's good that we have a kind of a system where maybe that races kind of we build up to the most competitive races, having runners that can meet each other from across the world to compete at the most competitive races. But I feel like they should be able to qualify for those races by doing without having to fly to multiple different events all over the world. So I think that we need more of a kind of local system that builds then a kind of tiered system where most of the racing is more local, and then people at the higher levels are more like and do more of the travel. And I don't want it to sound elitist, because I think that people should be able to go out and do exciting kind of races. But I personally, on my own, I guess I'll use myself as an example. For me, traveling to Berkeley was quite a dilemma, because it would involve flying to the States and back, and I did it 3 years in a row. I didn't do any other flying to races those years, and I don't intend to fly to any races now in the foreseeable future. I've turned down lots of offers, and that for me is because I don't want to kind of add more races to my kind of list of ones that I had to fly to. So personally, I think that you should kind of be selective. You should choose maybe to only fly to races that really mean a great deal to you, that you can't get to in any other way, and maybe kind of make those the big target race. So I think overall in the kind of scene of trail running, we need to be thinking about the way that our sport is moving, and to try and kind of to try and be conscious of the carbon footprint of our sport as a whole, and that unfortunately that does mean thinking about participant travel.
Thank you. It's great you mentioned that green runners, something that you co-founded, and one of the four pillars is how we move. I believe the other three is how you keep up, how you eat, and how you speak. Could you tell us a little bit more about green runners and how the co-founders and yourself intend to bring this sustainability kind of awareness out to the running communities, and how we can be a voice collectively to join you guys for climate change, and how we build this a better future for everybody else.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I kind of co-founded the Green Runners. It's basically just a group of runners, and we're all volunteers, so we're kind of just doing this because we're passionate about it. And the aim is to kind of inform and inspire the running community and empower them to make greener decisions in their running that are more planet friendly. And you're right, the kind of pillars that we've already talked a little bit about how you move, but thinking about how you kit up. So for me, I actually stepped away from having a sponsor because I wanted to use my platform on social media to be able to speak about these issues and about female participation in sports and the things that were important to me, rather than being used to kind of promote the people buying more kit and new kit and new season colors and that sort of thing. So now I try to repair my kit, reuse it, swap it if it doesn't work for me. So I think I've definitely acquired more sewing skills, and the Green Runners actually have some great kind of links to information about how to try and fix your shoes and things like that to make them last longer. So just check out thegreenrunners.com for lots more information about that. So that's kind of think about how you kit up and how you fuel. Obviously, we know that eating a more plant-based diet, trying to move in that direction, is a really good thing for the planet. So kind of trying to eat less meat and dairy if we can. And then finally, how we speak out. And I think this is the most important one. So it's great to have the Green Runners, I think, as a voice for the running community. And it's supposed to be like a two-way thing. We really kind of welcome input and people getting involved and giving ideas and so on. But things, for example, that the Green Runners did, they launched a petition when the UTMB announced Dacia as their headline sponsor, just saying that we don't, that we would rather you didn't kind of sign up for a car manufacturer as your headline sponsor, as the kind of being the kind of number one trail race that people look towards, or one of the very top trail races. So I think in general, obviously it's a car manufacturer, but generally, especially kind of fossil fuel sponsors, we need to try and keep them out of sport in general, but especially like trail running, we have the option at this point. We're young, we're a young sport, and this is the point when those big sponsors are trying to come in to kind of freshen up their image and make themselves associated with the green image of running. But the irony is that obviously as runners we need clean air to breathe, and we run past the glaciers that are melting, and we're directly affected by climate change. So so the Green Runners, as I say, it can be a voice to speak out about issues like this, and I think that sort of spills over into other areas of your life as well. So I hope that this will go beyond running, that kind of that desire to collectively speak out and call for the big decision makers, our governments and leaders, to make better decisions in terms of the climate.
All right, thank you for doing that and the initiative. We will definitely check it out, and join to be the voice for climate change. So you have done so much, and you mentioned you have pushed off quite a few races for the year. But just looking ahead, any goals or challenges that you're setting for yourselves?
So I'm running the Tour de Géant in September, which is a race around the Aosta Valley in Italy. It starts from Courmayeur, and I think it's about 330 kilometers, I think, and about 24,000 meters of ascent, somewhere in that region. And it's another one of these kind of non-stop races, so the leaders don't sleep very much in the course of that race. So I've not raced it before, but lots of good friends have. Lots of people say I will love it. John Kelly's going to be there. there, Damien's going to be there. So like lots of friends are going to be there as well. I can't wait. I guess I started running training again properly yesterday, so hopefully you'll get fit in time. And it's quite nice because I'm tying it in with my kind of annual veterinary conference that I sort of have to go to on a regular basis. So that's in Lyon. So I'm taking the train there and then getting get traveling on from there to the race. Which means that work will pay for the train fares to the conference and back as well, which is advantageous.
Perfect. It is a beautiful race. I've done it in 2018. I think you absolutely enjoy it. Yeah, it's my best trail running experience so far. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I can't wait. I really can't wait. I think it will be hard, but I think there will be a lot of kind of enjoyment as well and enjoy in it. So I can't wait to get back into those big mountains. I do miss being in big mountains and doing kind of fewer races like that in places like that.
Yeah, it's less of a race, but more of a journey. In my mind. I mean, you're just out there enjoying the Alps. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay. So thanks for everything. So we'll just move on to some more light-hearted stuff part. So more light-hearted part of the segment. So we're gonna ask you some quick fire questions. So this is something that the Singapore Ultra Runners Association does with our interviewees. So So if you could just allow us to ask you some quick fire questions, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I'm very bad at these. I'll warn you in advance. Okay, genuinely, I'm worse than anyone I've ever seen at doing these questions. And then afterwards, I debate for a long time, like, why did I say that? So I'm just the worst, but I'm honestly the worst person I've ever seen answering these questions. But crack on, and I'll say something.
Okay, it should be quite simple.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me too much.
No judging. Okay, so I'll kickstart this. So cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay. People or mountain?
Mountains. It depends which people, doesn't it? My kids.
Yeah, I agree. And how would you describe yourself? Stubborn or driven?
A bit of both, really. Driven, maybe.
And uphill or downhill?
Downhill. Although obviously when my knees are problem, then uphill. But overall downhill. That was always my forte.
Yeah, she's a fell running champion.
Oh, that's true. And okay, this might be quite interesting. Listen to your body or listen to the doctor?
Oh, I would listen. I think I would listen to my body probably.
I hope your doctor's not on.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm an animal doctor, so I guess I give myself some credit in that sense, that I know what's going on, maybe.
Okay, and maybe one last one, which is genetics or training.
Oh, that's hard. I would say, I mean, I think a lot comes down to training, but that comes down to how much you love it and how much you want to do it. So I don't know. Again, that's a bit of both because I probably required a bit in genetics, but I think a lot is down to training and how much you want to do it. I think a lot of people could do, a lot of people would be able to do trail racing if they just want, if they took it, I think essentially anyone can really, to be honest. But and I think a lot of people could do it really well if that was something that they wanted to prioritize.
Like, I guess it also depends on the sport, right? Ultra running, probably training will come stronger than genetics, But in basketball, genetics probably have have an edge over there. I mean, and none of us are going to play in the NBA for sure. So I'm mindful, Jasmin, that you're taking your valuable time during lunch to do this with us. So I do not want to hold it off for too long. And we wanted to hold you back maybe just 1 or 2 minutes to have everybody on screen so that we can take a picture and then we can let you go on your way. And again, we appreciate this very much and thank you very much for taking the time. Lisa says hi and thank you as well. And our technical director, would you do it?
Okay, so for the participants, if you don't mind, you can just put yourself, you can just show yourself on the video. And then we will put you on the gallery. You just need to hold your smile for maybe like 20 seconds because there's probably going to be 2 screens when you're ready. Okay, so I think some of the participants are still switching themselves on. So maybe let's just wait a moment. Okay, so we are just gonna start taking. So I'll take already. Yeah. Oh, sorry. It seems like the photos have been taken. Oops.
Well, I hope you're smiling.
I wasn't. Okay, so thank you very much, Jasmine, for your time. Lovely talking to you, and thanks for having us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, it was a pleasure. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.